I want to talk to you today about how my intuition has led me to live my life in a very extraordinary way, especially in love and when it comes to divine counterparts. So, I have always known that part of my soul journey in this particular lifetime was about relationships and about meeting a divine counterpart. However, I am a particularly slow learner, and so that means that there has been decades of learning within this soul experience. Not just decades in this lifetime, but when I've connected to many of my other lifetimes, I've also seen similar patterns in those. And in this particular lifetime, it has certainly been one where I have been closing out some of those patterns that I've seen in other lifetimes. And I really do have a profound story of how I came into union with my person. After decades of getting it wrong, I decided that I was going to fully concentrate on my own life, my own evolution, and I was actually very, very happy to work on what I called my high priestess era, where I worked really on my own self-concept, my mindset, and I did that for about 7 years. During that time, I was completely celibate and on my own in those regards. And I dedicated that time to my spiritual growth and absolutely loved that part of my journey. Somewhere at the latter end of that particular journey, it came into my awareness that I was going to be in a relationship, even though I was completely happy on my own. And one day out of the blue, I got a message that said, if you are invited to go on holiday, say yes. And at that time, I had no plans to go anywhere. And the next day, my sister messaged me and said that my aunt had invited me to go back to my hometown and for us to all to have a meetup there. Now, I hadn't been back to my hometown in just under 30 years. I had incredible memories from living in the town that I had grown up in, but more especially the house that I had grown up in, which I had dreamed of for years and years and years. And I would often talk to my sister about the home and how if I ever went back to my hometown, I would really love to see my childhood home again. Within an hour of getting to my aunt's home, I had unpacked, said my hellos, and then I was off for a walk, and I was drawn straight back to my childhood home. I peeked over the fence and I could see all of the work that the owners had done on the home, and it was absolutely beautiful. What I really wanted to do was to knock on the door and have a little peek inside, but I thought that might be a little bit invasive. So the weeks went by, and the week before I was meant to fly back to Canada, I had a spirit tell me, if you won't knock on the door, put a note through the letterbox. And I resisted this. I resisted this for a number of days, and Spirit said, this is your last chance. If you don't do it now, you will not have this opportunity again. So I listened. And I popped a note through the door saying that I had lived there as a child, and if they wanted to know more about the family who had lived there before them, then here was my WhatsApp number and here was my email address. The next day, I got a beautiful message back from the current owner of the house inviting me to go for tea on Sunday. Of course, I was absolutely ecstatic and was really looking forward to going back to see the house. Now, I had come over with some cute clothes, but for some reason, Spirit was telling me to go buy a new dress. Not only did Spirit tell me to go buy a new dress, but they told me to go buy a little gift for the person who now owned the house. And normally, you would take a bottle of wine or you would take some tea or something like that, but no, what Spirit really inspired me to get was a little heart ornament. Completely bizarre. Originally, it was going to be me and my sister who were going to go down to the house on the Sunday. But the day that we were meant to go down there, my sister said, "I don't really feel like going, you just go alone." And so off I toddled in my new dress and the little gift that I had purchased. And I was so excited, and I couldn't explain this excitement. I was buzzing inside, and yes, I was excited to see the house, but I was also really excited to meet the owner. Like I say, it felt like my whole soul was buzzing. So there I walked up to my old childhood home, knocked on the door, and the door was opened by Stephen. And Stephen's first words to me were, "Welcome home." Stephen had purchased this home from my mother almost 30 years ago, and I had never met him. He had lived there for the last 30 years, he'd raised his family there, and he was now also single and had been for almost 10 years. There was absolutely an instant soul connection, and the words "welcome home" have never felt more meaningful. It is now almost 3 years on that we have been dating and are engaged to be married this autumn. And I can tell you that it's an extraordinary story, and it is an extraordinary relationship. It is the most beautiful and profound experience that I have ever had. And I can tell you that there is not a day that goes by when I am not grateful for listening to my intuition. Now, why do I tell you this? Well, I tell you this because I know that many of you are on similar paths to me, that many of you might be currently in your high priestess era, where you're working on your own soul growth and your own soul evolution. And there may be still part of you that is longing for that perfect love. And I'm gonna tell you, it exists. I wasn't sure for the longest while. I wasn't sure if it actually existed, and I can tell you that it does. It is much easier for me to have the camera turned the other way and for me to give readings to you, and of course I will continue to do that because that is something that I love to do. But I also understand that I have higher purpose in coming to share the messages that I experienced in my days of my spiritual awakening, and I have had many profound experiences. And I believe that part of me being a slow learner means that I've had many experiences that give me empathy and non-judgment to those that are on their awakening journey. And I really want to share with you how you can create your version of heaven on earth by listening to your intuition.